Continuing the 7th annual Oswego County Safe Fair, I'm Teresa Wilson, president and founder of the Bow Foundation. Next up, we have the community of Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous with Anthony Caputa and guest. Anthony grew up in Auburn, New York, where he started drinking and using drugs at the age of 13. By high school, he was going to school drunk and drinking on campus, which led to his expulsion from high school. By 23, he was homeless and penniless. A series of arrests led to his detoxing in a mental health clinic, then going to a rehab and halfway house in Hannibal. While in the halfway house, he began taking classes at SUNY Oswego. He is now an English teacher at SUNY Oswego and Jefferson Community College, with 31 years clean and sober. Welcome, Anthony.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, so I'm going to start with Bill W. I'm sorry, I can't get this continue meeting out of the way. Can you see this? The meeting is being recorded?
No, we don't see that.
Okay. So let me talk about, well, what I'm going to talk about today. So it's the community in AA and AA in the community. And we're going to talk about how AA developed. And we're going to talk about, the community that's created in AA. And then we're going to talk about community members. So I'm going to start with actually like a paragraph that I want to read. From the big book. All right, and this is called A Vision for You. And this kind of like, it kind of captures the isolation that we feel. So for most normal folks, drinking means conviviality, companionship, and colorful imagination. It means release from care, boredom, and worry. It is joyous intimacy with friends and feelings that life is good, but not so with us in those last days of heavy drinking. The old pleasures were gone. They were but memories. Never could we recapture the great moments of the past. There was an insistent yearning to enjoy life as we once did, and a heartbreaking obsession that some new miracle of control will enable us to do it. There was always one more attempt and one more failure. The less people tolerated us, the more we withdrew from society. As we became subjects of King Alcohol, shivering denizens of his mad realm, the chilling vapor that is loneliness settled down. It thickened, ever becoming blacker. Some of us sought out sordid places, hoping to find understanding, companionship, and approval. Momentarily we did, then would come oblivion, and the awful awakening to face the hideous four horsemen: terror, bewilderment, frustration, despair, and unhappiness. The four horsemen. Unhappy drinkers who read this page will understand that. So that kind of captures how we feel, like at the end of our drinking. And so let me talk a little bit about Bill W. And so now this is in the 1930s, and Bill W. he's one of the co-founders of Alcoholics Anonymous. And he desperately wanted to stop drinking, but he found that he could not. No matter what he did, no matter, any new thing that he tried, he always ended up drinking again. He had a lucrative career on Wall Street, but he drank it away. He and his wife, Lois, they ended up living in a small apartment above her parents' house. Bill's out of work by this point, and Lois is working at Macy's department store. And by the way, Lois was from a pretty wealthy family at the time. But she had to go back to work. Bill had been hospitalized a few times, and doctors told Lois and Lois's father that he would eventually have to be committed, or he would become a wet brain. He would go into DTs and he would become, basically wet brain. Now that brings us to Ebby Thatcher. Now he was facing that exact same thing. He was about to be committed to an insane asylum for alcoholics, and that's what happened to alcoholics back in the 20s and 30s and 40s. He stood in front of a judge, and what happened is two men stepped up One of them had been Ebby's friend, and he said that we can take Ebby and we can help him get sober. They belong to a group called the Oxford Group, which a lot of people don't know about, but a lot of people in AA do. Part of their program was to carry the message of hope and sobriety to suffering alcoholics. So the judge released Ebby, right? And said, okay, you're in charge of him. If he gets arrested again, he's going to be, he'll be committed. So they had to take the message to somebody else, and Ebby told them about Bill W. back in New York. So they went to New York and they talked to Bill. Now, Bill was sold on the idea, not right away. Maybe it took a few meetings of Ebby meeting with him, but eventually he said, okay, I want to get sober and I'll join the Oxford Group. But he's real sick at the time. So he ends up going to this hospital that I have up right here, Towns Hospital. And he goes under the care of Dr. Silkworth, who I don't have him on this slide yet. He'll come up in a little bit. So he'd been treating alcoholics for a while, and he knew how sick Bill was. So Bill's in the hospital for a little while. And when he's in there, he has a spiritual experience. And what comes to him basically is that he knew there are thousands of people like him in New York who wanted to stop drinking, and they didn't know how. So he wanted to take the program to them. And this is still the Oxford program. And so when he left the hospital, he and Ebby set out to do that, and mainly Bill. Ebby was still in the picture at the time, but he ends up drinking again. But Bill stays sober, right? And he's trying to help other alcoholics get sober through these Oxford meetings. And he's failing miserably. They're drinking again. He can't get anybody sober. He's also during this time trying to repair his career on Wall Street. So a company hired him to go to Akron, Ohio to investigate and purchase, if it could be done, a failing company. The job was not going well. He was in Oxford or Akron for a little while, and he was failing at that miserably too. And he was in the hotel lobby one night, and he could hear like the laughter and just good time that was happening in the bar. And he wanted to join that just to relieve a little stress. Then he even had the thought about drinking again. So in desperation, he found a phone booth and he called some members of the Oxford Group back in New York, and they put him in touch with this woman right here, Henrietta Searbling. Henrietta was also a member of the Oxford Group. All right, she told Bill that she'd been working with a man who had been trying to get sober for years, and that was Dr. Bob. That's Henrietta right there, and there's Dr. Bob. Now, he's the other co-founder of Alcoholics Anonymous. So Bill calls Dr. Bob, but he gets his wife, and his wife tells him that, Bob he's under the table, the dining table, passed out, and there's no way he can see him. He's going to be able to talk to him that night. But she says, get ready for tomorrow. All right, I'll have him ready, and you come over and you two can talk, and hopefully you can talk some sense into him. And so Bill does go over, right? And he and Bob start working together. They may be together for a few weeks, and then Bob has to go on a convention in Toronto, and he ends up relapsing. He goes on quite a bender, and he gets back to Toronto. He gets back to Akron, and Bill, he sobers him up over the next few days. Bob has him, actually, he's a surgeon, and he has to go perform some surgery, so they have to get him sober so he can go do this. Once he does, they get to work. All right, so now what they do is they reverse the equation. So Bill had been trying to get people sober for them to stay sober. When he had called Bob in that hotel lobby, it was to keep himself sober. So now they go out and they do this, and they start visiting hospitals, not to save other people, because they can't save other people. They can give them the program, and they can use the program to save themselves, but they're saving their lives by bringing this message to other people. So that's going to bring me to the 12th step. Now, the program, both AA, NA, and all the self-help programs, they have 12 steps. And the 12th step is really important. Okay, and I'm going to focus on two sections of it. Carrying the message. So just how do we do that, right? How do we carry a message to still sick and suffering addicts? Well, the one thing we do is meetings. one of a number of things, but I'm going to talk about 3 of them. So we gather in meetings, not just to keep ourselves sober, but to help other alcoholics and addicts to achieve sobriety. That's what's really happening at meetings. It's not just a bunch of people getting together to tell war stories. We're there to save our lives, right? We're there to help other people save their own lives and to recreate their life. So, that's what's happening at meetings. And what a lot of people don't know is the work that goes into a meeting. A meeting is run by a home group. And so any newcomer, when they come in, they're given some suggestions. And one of them is to become a member of a home group. And there's a reason for that. And hopefully people if you've been listening, I've been explaining to you how slowly a community evolved, right? From the Oxford group and Ebby to Bill Wilson, to Henrietta, to Dr. Bob, and then to all these other alcoholics that they go out and they help. They are building like a network of people that they can rely on. And so that's what happens in a home group. You join a home group and there's 10, 15, 20, however many people are belonging to that group who get to know you, right? And they get to know you because one thing that happens is you're given a commitment. Okay, so you may have to make coffee. You may have to help set up a meeting. You may have to help tear down a meeting, like clean the room up after it's finished. You may have to greet people as they come into the meeting. Whatever it is, you're working in close proximity with these group members. So you all get to know one another and you start to bond. All right, and that's important because one of the things that happens, and I touched on it earlier, is that the end stage of addiction is really isolation. The addict is completely by themselves. They've been shut off because of their disease from other people. They may or may not have work, and even if they do, they're not very close with their coworkers. They're not very close to their family anymore. They're really isolated. And so slowly the walls of the cell that they've built for themselves is broken down. And part of that is through doing these service commitments and working with these people. So the other thing that happens really early in the program, a newcomer is told to get a sponsor. So a sponsor is somebody who helps newcomers through the steps and into the broader program of action. All the stuff that I just explained, joining a home group and taking on a commitment. And eventually what you do is you sponsor people. And so again, you're mimicking that thing that Bill W. did with Dr. Bob. So in doing this, and I can speak even from experience, okay, my sponsor had a bunch of people that he knew and I was introduced to them. I eventually sponsored people, and those people that I sponsored, they know a lot of people in AA, even though they're new. They still have met people. And so in that way, the one individual I was who was isolated, slowly I start to broaden, right? And I start to pick up more relationships. And so that's the third thing that happens is you build a support network. Okay, so the community doesn't just involve itself with just AA meetings solely. AA, you meet your people and you start to have lunch dates. You start to have dinner dates. You start to have gatherings at people's houses. The AA group may have picnics or dances, and we have, my home group, or at least some of the groups that I belong to have, and we become integral in the AA community. Now, in getting sober, let me explain how AA members become members of the community that they live in. So when I got sober, I joined college. Like, I was introduced, that introduction, I joined college. I became part of the college community. And it's not that I was just going to college. Okay, I was practicing the principles in my affairs. So I was practicing kindness. I was practicing tolerance. I was practicing love. I was practicing accountability and responsibility and all those things. So the college community that I belonged to knew me as that person. They didn't know me as an alcoholic or an addict. They knew me as the kind of person that I just described. And those things were work, right? It was difficult for me to do those things, but eventually I became that. That's who I was, all right, in the college community. And the same thing happened with work. That's who I was at work. The people that I worked with, and I've had several jobs over the years, they don't know me as an addict. They know me as somebody who is responsible. And if I make a commitment, I keep that commitment. That just became part of who I am. So the suffering addict there's the possibility of going from being completely alone and isolated to belonging to a large community of people and helping organizations like this organization. So this is the last, piece of the puzzle for me. Some of us move on to, we don't just help at our home groups, but we extend beyond that, and we become people that may speak at organizations, right? We may talk to schools. I may go to a classroom, right? I may go to some employment agency or something like that. A lot of us do those kinds of things. So we become part of the community of AA, and we become responsible parts of the community that we live in. Okay, so that's my presentation. Does anyone have any questions for me? You guys there?
I don't see any questions in the chat.
How about, did my guest Jeff come in yet?
I believe there is a Jeff K here.
That's
Yep.
all right. So now Jeff is he's gonna talk about his story, as it relates to the program and to the community and anything else he wants to share. So you take it, Jeff.
All right, my name's Jeff. I'm an alcoholic and an addict. And yes, when I was thinking of the topic of, AA and NA and the community as it relates to, community, I was thinking, community, communication, well, I guess I'll start with, like when I was using and drinking, my communication skills were terrible, I didn't have regular conversations normally, my life was revolved around using literally outside of work. So I spoke work and I spoke, drugs and alcohol, so when I first got to the rooms of AA, I didn't know how to have a regular conversation with people, I was really out of practice, so when I got there, I sat in the back and I didn't really I don't know, I didn't really communicate with anybody. But my friend Daniel, he's the one that first brought me into the program. We had met, we were in the same outpatient program, and he invited me to go to a meeting with him because it's kind of how it goes. AA doesn't really have like I don't know what is it, marketing, it's word of mouth, and if you want to do your own research you can find out about it, but I didn't know where AA meetings were or anything, and so my friend Dan, he reached out to me. We had some things in common, and he brought me to my first AA meeting, and my first meeting, I didn't think AA was that great, honestly. I was like, I kind of, really held back, and but we kept going to meetings, and we went to meetings all over Syracuse. That's where I was living at the time. And eventually he brought me to a group that ended up being my home group, and this group of people, I felt like I belonged there, felt like these were my people, so I was then involved in a group. I got a service position. I did coffee, made the coffee, and I set up the chairs before the meeting, and that gave me the opportunity to start talking to people before the meeting, after the meeting, and and they would help, and I was able, I had like a sense of purpose. I felt like I was being of service to people. That's a service position, and but so over time I learned to talk. Um, at first I didn't talk in the meetings at all. When it came around to me, I said, my name's Jeff, I'm an alcoholic, and I'm just gonna listen, and that's all I ever said. And but over time, as I became more comfortable with the people in my group, I was able to start opening up and sharing. And I think I was looking at hold on, I got it right here though. Communication, the definition. Communication is the act of conveying meanings from one entity or group to another through the use of mutually understood signs, symbols, and semiotic rules. But I like the mutually understood part. These people at the meetings, they spoke the same language as me. They understood the things I had gone through, and I was able to start relating. We had mutual things in common. The idea that we don't want to drink anymore, don't want to do drugs anymore. We want to be able to live free from that. And I don't know, that sense of purpose really, well, that shared sense of purpose really brings people together from my experience. It brought me closer to the other people in the meetings. But I was thinking about in in meetings we talk about fellowship, the fellowship of the spirit. It's called, I believe, in the book.
You still there, Jeff?
Hey, sorry, I think I lost my Wi-Fi there for a second. So, but I was saying, shoot, I lost
Fellowship of
my
the
train
Spirit.
of thought.
Fellowship
What's
of the
that?
Spirit.
Fellowship of
Of
the
the
Oh
Spirit.
yeah, Fellowship of the Spirit. So the guys that well, as I continued to grow in the rooms by doing the steps, I ended up getting a sponsor, and I started working on myself. And so I was able to start hanging out with guys that were doing the same thing as I was, trying to work on themselves, become better people. And that fellowship, we did stuff together all the time outside of the rooms. And I started to learn to be able to, do things besides just drink and do drugs with people. We, did all sorts of stuff, whatever it was, bowling. We went swimming all the time. We spent a whole summer. We went, checked out different swimming spots, and, you know, we'd meet people there, and, make friends as we went along. We went out to Vermont that summer. We went out to Dorset, Vermont, and that's Bill W.'s childhood home is there, and we went to a meeting there. But that we also went there because there's an old marble quarry there. It's the oldest marble quarry in the United States, but at this point it's filled up with water, and you can jump off cliffs and stuff. And it was a really cool adventure. It was something that I'd never done before. Go out of state for an adventure with my friends. But either way, um, the fellowship taught me to care for other people, right? Start thinking about other people besides myself. Um, and these guys, they held me accountable for my actions, and I held them accountable for theirs. And I just think it overall that, sorry, I must.
It's okay. You're there.
Okay, all right, yeah. So I just think overall, building these relationships, learning to build relationships helps communities overall. People, you know, you got people that are no longer drinking. They're trying to better themselves and be of service to others, right? And I just think overall in the community, how could that not make a community better? You know, um, I don't know, some of the best people I've ever met, I've met in the rooms. You know, there's a lot of great characters, you know, and they're definite characters. Really, it just what I was just saying that some of the best people I've met have been in the rooms of AA and NA. You know, but man, I've really lost my train of thought now. So I guess I'll bring it to some questions. If anybody has questions for me. I can't hear anything.
Jeff, how often do you think people should go to AA meetings?
Oh, okay. Sorry, I just caught that. Um, I think it's different for everybody. Like when I first got to the rooms, they recommend there's a saying 90 meetings in 90 days, right? And I did a lot more than that. Really meetings all the time. You know, I went to 2 or 3 sometimes because I enjoyed spending time. Like I said, my friend, uh, he was with me at the time, and I just really like spending time with him and getting to know him. So we went to meetings all the time. Um, go to a meeting a day, go to 2 meetings a day. Why not? And especially in early recovery, you know. But like now I'm really busy with work, so
Lost Jeff again.
Yeah, any questions for me?
Tony, how would someone find out where there's a meeting if they want to go?
Right now, you can go on a website called aa.org, or you can do syracuse.aa.org. Like, look like that, you know, in that way. And you should find a list of all the meetings in Oswego, Baldwinsville, right, all the meetings in the surrounding areas. And actually, let me talk a little bit. We've got a few minutes, right?
Yes, you do. You have time.
Okay, let me talk about like what happened with meetings over the quarantine. So as everyone knows, like all the churches and they shut down. Everything shut down. We couldn't get into any AA meetings anywhere. And I live in a community where there's a couple of 3 recovering alcoholics and addicts. And we got together. We're like, you know, what are we going to do? How are we going to help people stay clean and sober? One of the things we did is we put an envelope down at the Serenity Hall, and people that came by that were new could put their phone number in there and we could reach them. And that was some help, but we didn't think enough, you know. So some of us got together and said, well, why don't we try a few of us at least meeting on Zoom? All right. And so we did. You know, we met on Zoom a couple of times. Then somebody suggested, let's take one of the groups here and use their name, and we'll create a Zoom AA meeting. And we did. And what happened is, I believe thousands of people in thousands of communities across the country had the same idea. So within a few weeks of the quarantine, AA was online. It was on Zoom, and everybody could get to a meeting. They could find one easily. And then, you know, what happened is after the winter, a bunch of people in the community said, let's have outdoor meetings. All right, so we started to meet outdoors. So like one of the ones in Oswego, we met at Brightback Park. And there could be between 30 and 50 people at that meeting. And there were other meetings that were like that too in the area. So AA will always find a way to carry the message just because we have to. People depend on it and we depend on it. Okay.
Thank you. Jeff, I see you're back. Would you like to add anything?
Oh, no, I don't know the last thing that was brought up. Besides, I just heard Tony talking about the Zoom during the quarantine, but
Were you on Zoom? Were you on Zoom this year? Did you have?
yes, yeah, I actually I did the Zoom meetings. I found them very useful during the quarantine, not being able to go to meetings in person. The Zoom made it very easy to, you know, if I needed to talk to someone about whatever's going on, I was able to bring up a topic and get feedback on it. And I also made a couple friends for people that, you know, I call back and forth, you know, and reach out to each other's, you know, just to have a conversation every once in a while. And because that's a big thing for me is I need to talk about what's bouncing around in my head with someone else, and other alcoholics are the people that I get the best feedback for myself on.
Thank you, Jeff, for sharing. It's been great.
Yes.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions for Anthony or Jeff? Put them in the chat or speak them out. I see some encouraging messages in the chat for you, Jeff. Everybody likes to hear your story. They're very encouraged by it. If there isn't anything else, thank you so much for being here.
All right, thank you for having us.
Great, that was very good. Thank you so much, both of you.
All right, goodbye.